Hello and welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West. Just 45 minutes ago, President Trump touched down in the United Kingdom for his long-awaited state visit. Tonight we ask, is Britain on the brink of a Trump-style revolution? Prime Minister Keir Starmer is drowning in scandal. The UK economy is circling the drain and a tidal wave of unchecked illegal immigrants pushed 150,000 furious citizens onto the streets in a collective howl of anger. Labour's whopping majority, worthless. The party, rudderless. Bankrupt of ideas. A government on life support. I hate to say it, but I believe our once Great Britain is on the fast track to becoming a failed state. Tonight we talk to Maurice Glassman, a peer, a thinker, and intriguingly, the only Labour politician invited to Donald Trump's inauguration. Lord Glassman, welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West.
Well, I hope you're saving it.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Americans think this country is completely broken. We're jailing people for tweets. We can't control our borders. Our economy is in the toilet. 6.5 million people languishing on benefits. It feels to me there's no pride in this country anymore. How does that make you feel? And how does it make you feel that our reputation around the world is in such dire straits?
Yeah, it was shocking when I went to the inauguration. I mean, you would have thought that our country was governed by people who protected paedophiles and Pakistani rape gangs. I mean, that was the mood.
I felt it myself.
You're picking up on the mood of a certain kind of America. I mean, don't forget, Harry, that this country is the greatest place in the world to live. It's a beautiful country. It's a magnificent country. We have a culture and a way of life that is unsurpassed. I mean, I really believe in it. I think that we've had 50 years since Thatcher, in fact, of essentially government stupidity. They don't get it. But I think, you know, things must change and things must turn. I mean, I'm completely committed to industrial strategy. I think that's vital. We've got to build up our armed forces properly. We've got to protect our borders. So I think that our country has had really bad periods before. This isn't one of the worst by any means. I mean, the Great Depression was very bad. Enclosures was awful. I mean, we've had civil war. So, Harry, our country is great, and we've got to strengthen our democracy, restore the integrity of Parliament, the police. These are the ways. But I think the mood has changed, and people really believe in our country, and they're willing to really commit to it.
You spend as much time as I do often in America. Well, I've moved there now, but people the second they hear your accent, they say, "What's going wrong?" They mostly say England.
Well,
what is going wrong in England?
I mean,
what do you answer when people say that?
I said, yeah, you haven't got the whole story. You should come over. I mean, it's an insane proposition. I mean, London is a great city to live in. It's the best city in the world.
It's not without its problems, though, is it?
Who isn't? You're in DC. You're talking about not having problems.
Yeah, well,
I mean, DC is a wipeout. I mean, Detroit is a wipeout. America has got much more severe racial, violent problems, a huge underclass, real disaffection. I mean, you're living in a country with real disaffection. So what I say to Americans when they say that to me is, come over to England and you won't want to leave. You know, it's much better than America.
One thing that America seems to be getting right, that Britain is not, and as one of the issues I think that we can learn from each other is, Donald Trump's just had another month of zero crossings on the southern border. It's zero catch and release. Starmer has his one-in, one-out deal that literally cannot get off the ground. Record highs, heading for a record high of small boat crossings this year. Why is one leader recently elected able to stop things and another incapable?
I mean, that's an extraordinary achievement by Donald Trump, and I recognise that. I'd like to talk about Donald Trump a bit, but obviously the problem for us is that we haven't really grasped the possibilities of Brexit. Brexit was a magnificent thing. If you want to believe in your country, believe that we voted for Brexit against all odds. That's what gives me huge hope in my country. People want democracy, people want sovereignty. And what we've still got is this the ECHR,
the Strasbourg Court, the Human Rights Act.
I've argued in your sister paper, the Sunday Times, that we have to withdraw from the ECHR, have to scrap the Human Rights Act. People want governments to act.
And Britain will not be able to have anywhere near the impact that Donald Trump's had, his secret sauce, unless they take some radical action.
Well, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for action.
Is Keir Starmer a man to take radical action? The human rights lawyer, technocratic, and he promised competent, but currently incompetent Prime Minister. Is he the one to do it?
Well, let's see how he goes. I mean, Keir Starmer is, I think, pretty shocked by the reality of being Prime Minister. I think
That's pretty damning. I mean,
but
surely he should have known what's coming.
He comes from a class of lawyers, and they think the world is made of words, not of boats, for example. They think if they pass... He's got to get with it, and he's got to absolutely scrap the ECHR, get out of the human rights, put the Royal Navy in the Channel, double down on Ukraine. That's how
he's had 14 months to do all this, and he's got his cabinet. Surrounded himself by fellow lawyers. Lord Herman, the Attorney General, saying that Britain can never leave the ECHR. It sounds like a prime minister is unable to cope. Is he going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, but if he doesn't do it, he's gone. I mean, he's got to... I mean, Labour can die... Like the Conservative Party, let's look at that. It's a great party, historically, the Conservative Party.
It tends to bounce back, but it takes a generation, right?
Well, this is their worst defeat since 1832 last time, and it's not getting any better for them. I mean, I liken them to
We can talk about the Corn Laws later.
No, but that's a very serious thing.
No, it is. I mean, but it took them 30 years to come back.
Conservatives now, they're like ghosts. They speak to us, but we don't hear. They live amongst us, but we can't see them. Labour can go that way.
Yes.
He's got to act.
You've said Labour, borders and immigration are existential for Labour. Are you suggesting that if Keir Starmer doesn't get radical, he's going to lose the next election?
He's not just going to lose the next election. He's going to leave as his legacy the destruction of Labour as a force in British politics. I
mean, so are you saying that he's not? If he doesn't do this, then they should, a new leader should be elected?
Look around and tell me who you want. I mean, Keir Starmer has got to grasp the situation, be a prime minister. No, it's not that. It's just that there's been a complete atrophy of Labour thinking. New Labour, Peter Mandelson was the most serious Labour politician
we'll get on to him in a moment.
Of the last 40 years. And look where he took us.
It sounds to me like you are looking at a party you've been a member of and loved and fought for is in denial. You seem to be the only one that's actually saying this out loud.
Well, it's very difficult when you've been inculcated for 40 years that the world is a certain way, that it's a borderless world, it's a technological world, it's a globalised world.
But it was the Labour Party that told us that.
Well, they were just drawing on Thatcherism. I mean, Tony Blair immaculately consummated what Margaret Thatcher
he took it and ran with it, though, right? I mean, he
totally took it.
Globalisation is very much a new Labour mantra.
Look at the meaning of Thatcherism. The meaning of Thatcherism, in the end, is our deindustrialisation and the empowerment of the Chinese Communist Party. All the capital went to China, no free and democratic unions, 24 hours a day. We have got to reindustrialise. We've got to show penance. What I'm saying is that this period from 79 until now is liberal globalisation.
And are you saying that has to die?
That needs to die. That's over.
Do you really think Keir Starmer? I mean, I think Donald Trump's doing a pretty good crack at reshaping the world order. Is Keir Starmer going to be the man standing next to his side doing it here?
When history takes a turn like it has now, the election of Donald Trump last year was a huge turning point. The first term, I say history repeats itself, first as farce and then as tragedy. Yeah. His first term was the farce. Now we've got the tragedy. It's for real.
What's the tragedy? What's the tragedy there? What is he getting? What is he getting? First of all, what is he getting right? We've talked about his sort of secret sauce on the border. What else is he getting right, and then what is he getting wrong?
Well, I think what Trump gets absolutely right is the primacy of politics over law. He understands that.
He certainly does that, yeah.
So I view Donald Trump as a figure of historical importance. And this is very difficult for the left to understand. They think he's a buffoon. They think he's a fool.
That's their comfort blanket. That's the derangement syndrome they let themselves delude themselves with.
Julius Caesar was a bankrupt shagger who had to basically invade
all great leaders are flawed, right? Yeah.
I mean, Napoleon Bonaparte was a perverted dwarf, but these are huge historical figures. Trump represents the end of an era of globalisation and the beginning of the era of national economic strategy, the industrialisation plans he's got, the incentives he gives to capital. Tariffs, a huge thing here. So all of that is absolutely necessary for this change of era. And what's necessary for my party, for my Prime Minister and for Labour is to understand that this is a socialist moment, nation-state, industrial strategy.
Do you really think that is, though? Do you really think this country is crying out for socialism?
Absolutely. And I think America will go that way. I mean, I've spoken to Steve Bannon a lot. He wants state-led industrial strategy.
I mean, they'll probably call it something else. Though,
they
right?
do call it something else. What I'm saying
Populism,
is...
where do you see it? How would you describe it?
Describe Trump?
Yeah.
I describe Trump as in the tradition of Huey Long, you know, the old Louisiana governor, who is very interested in mobilising state power in order to renew the national economy through industrial investment. So this is, I call him a populist in the American tradition. But what I'm saying is, if you look at Labour's history, if you look at Labour's what it's actually done, and I'm not including Tony Blair in that story.
Yeah, you don't
Labour wanted sovereignty, parliamentary sovereignty, nationalisation, you know, the utilisation of the state to benefit the people, and particularly the working class. Another area that is fascinating about the new era, I mean, in the era you grew up in, who were the working class? They were the left behind. Now they decide elections, Harry. Now they are the decisive force.
And one thing they've decided, if you look at the polls, they've clearly decided that Keir Starmer and Keir Starmer's Labour Party, which doesn't have the intellectual heft that you have, it doesn't have, really, from where I can see, much of a political instinct or even a guiding principle. Is it too late for Keir Starmer, given that he's had his chance, he's got in, he's won, he's got achieved power, but power for what sake? Can he claw this back? Or is it too late?
I mean, the arithmetic says there's 4 years to go. I mean, Margaret Thatcher, when she was elected in 79, you're too young to remember.
Just about.
The first 18 months were hopeless. There was a battle between the West. No, it wasn't just the Falklands, it was Geoffrey Howe's budget. That was a real turning point. And then there was the privatisations. Then there was the council house sales. Now, no one remembers Margaret Thatcher as a dithering, useless. But if you, Kate, tuned in just about the end of 1980, you'd have thought she was.
When you look at the government in this country, and you'll see them all lining up to welcome Donald Trump tomorrow, who gives you hope? Obviously, Starmer, I think you've made your voice pretty clear. Rachel Reeves is obviously just drowning under a mountain of debt. She's boxed herself in on taxes. She doesn't exactly scream, the sort of person that's going to do massive interventions in the market. Is there anyone sitting around the cabinet table that you think they could be the one?
Well, there's three that I really respect, and I think they're head and shoulders above the rest. The first is Shabana Mahmood.
No sort of traditional left winger on law and order and borders.
She's immaculate. All eras. The first responsibility of government is protection of the border and civic peace. And the idea that you can nick people's phones, that you can go shoplifting and there's no punishment for that is ridiculous.
Do you see her as a future leader? I mean, when she got the job as Home Secretary, there was an absolutely disgusting reaction to that, purely because of her faith, that she was considered, a sort of infiltrator. If you look at some of the stuff online.
That's what I'm saying. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Shabana Mahmood is a patriot.
Yeah.
Shabana Mahmood is devoted to this country.
She wants to castrate pedos. I mean,
well, that is
not a traditional. Well, I'm up for it.
I'm up for it too.
Let's bring it on.
So what I'm saying, Shabana Mahmood is Home Secretary, and when she was a Justice, it was the same. She's diligent. She's hardworking.
No, I've said that to a few people.
And the second one is John Healey at Defence. He's recognised what a catastrophe he was left. I mean, we've got less than 70,000 troops now. We have to double the size of the army.
Which was a Labour promise to return it back to 100,000. They somehow
it's going to go further.
They haven't done that.
It's going to go further. What I'm saying is, just look at what John Healey is doing. Not only what John Healey is saying, and he's also brokered a very interesting partnership with the Ukrainian army. So we are now, our country, Great Britain, is now the very strongest ally of Ukraine in Europe. Ukraine has industrial power. Ukraine has agricultural power. Ukraine has the best army in Europe.
And it wants to buy a lot of arms off us if we can make them quick enough.
And they want to do it with us. Our industrial strategy will be a partnership with Ukraine for weapons production.
Who's the third?
Steve Reed.
Okay, there's an on you. Not a box of household name in this country, let alone America.
Everything he does.
The housing secretary.
Yeah, and everything he does is diligent and correct. He's very good. What I'm saying is there is talent, and there's talent in the party, but what we don't have, I also, which everybody knows, absolutely respect Morgan McSweeney, who I think has a strong...
Do you think do you think Keir Starmer can survive without his right-hand man, the guy that put him in that office, and the guy that's trying to, as far as I can see, keep him reality-based to what voters actually want?
I mean, the idea that Morgan McSweeney is a liability to Labour is crazy. He's really an excellent political operator, and he's a He's a Labour loyalist. So what I'm saying is there's talent in that place.
Which one, before we move on, which one of those three do you think would be a Prime Minister next? Should Shabana Mahmood?
Yeah.
That's
way, but I mean, she's not moving for that.
No.
What I'm saying is
she's got to do a damn good job in the Home Office to survive.
Look, Home Secretary is considered the graveyard of English politics.
It produces Theresa May. That was great, wasn't it?
Really effective.
Good industrial strategy,
and
though.
Brexit. Yeah, look at that. Corporate governance. Do you remember that? No, I mean, what I'm saying is Labour's got to be Labour. It's got to actually relearn how to act.
Can you do that in government, I think, I suppose, is the question I'm asking you.
Yeah. Yes, you certainly can.
And just quickly on Morgan McSweeney, our interview last week with Peter Mandelson obviously is still being reverberating around the world, around the West. Morgan McSweeney was the person pushing for Peter Mandelson to be the US ambassador, despite all of his baggage with Epstein. Little birdie tells me that you were not for that.
Yeah, well, I was at the inauguration and people were just walking up to me with their phones and showing me photos of Peter Mandelson going clothes shopping with. I don't know about you.
On St Bart's, buying.
No, I don't go clothes shopping with other men. You know, that's a very intimate thing to do. It was clear that this was going to explode. And it's happened. And what I would say about Peter Mandelson, negotiated the trade deal, did a very effective job. I mean, he's an extremely effective politician. So I understand the logic of appointing him. Who else would you get? He actually basically brokered the Lisbon Treaty. I mean, that was an enormous trade deal. He also did Northern Ireland. That was a very interesting deal. Peter Mandelson is the most important. There's two in the last 40 years, don't know what you think, the two leading politicians of the last 40 years are Peter Mandelson and Nigel Farage. I mean, that's what I think.
Why do you think Nigel Farage has sort of cut through the noise and, despite his flaws, which are well known, despite his, repeated attempts to get a seat in Parliament, etc., and Labour are desperately throwing everything they possibly can at him. He drinks too much, he smokes too much, he didn't pay enough tax. None of it seems to be sticking. What is, to me, Nigel Farage has that same sort of secret sauce that Donald Trump has, in a way that, nothing really sticks. People know the baggage and they still vote for it.
Tony Blair had that as well, by the way. It was used to be called Teflon. No, he doesn't have that. He's actually a very sincere, honest man. He's got to tune into Attlee Starmer, methodical, systematic action. But Attlee's cabinet was full of giants.
Do you think that? Well, no one really says that about the current state of British politics. Do you think Keir Starmer can win the next election?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then there's two parts to that question. Will Keir Starmer win the next election?
That's up for grabs. Can he win it? Yeah, but there has to be... What we don't have right now is a coherent identity, strategic direction. And I think that this visit by Donald...
Fatal.
That is fatal. So that's got to be discovered.
What should it be? What is that? What are we missing?
You want the three things?
Go on, in three succinct bullet points, please.
Okay, the first is the industrial strategy.
Yeah.
And that's on the back, building up the army. That's absolutely vital. The second is effective control of our borders.
Yeah.
That's absolutely vital too. The third is real and genuine reform of the state. AI is here, it can do a huge amount of mundane jobs.
You sound like Nigel Farage there. I've had a conversation with him many times. He's coming on tomorrow night, I hope. That is literally Reform's platform.
Oh, well, OK.
It's fascinating, but it's fascinating.
But that's the space. Have
you spoken to Farage about any of this?
Yeah, I'm on with Farage nearly every week on another channel, let's say.
Well, I don't want to
upset you in any way.
Other channels in the West are available. But would you...
But what I'm saying is Nigel Farage deep down is a saloon bar Thatcherite. That's the first thing. The second thing, Harry, so far, he's been a Putin appeaser. This is what I've got the objection. That's the objection when I was in DC. I just said, you're crazy. I mean, really serious Republican politicians were telling me that Ukraine was a gay country, that it was an LGBT country. Yeah, I mean, this is an orthodox country, a very conservative country. They're crazy. And what I'm saying is the basis of Labour is that you will recognise nationalisation, state partnership and industrial strategy is authentically Labour.
Which is why Reform are presumably going very hard after those things
but he would have, Nigel Farage would have the same problems as Keir Starmer in that it will be inauthentic for him. During the Brexit campaign, he was going on about Singapore.
I think, Singapore on Thames. Whatever happened to that? Never quite turned up. On that theme, though, I've spoken to Farage about this and others, is if Farage, as the polls look like he will, become the Prime Minister, I mean, it's still a long way away, but if an election was held tomorrow, I think he'd be walking down.
Yeah, but it's 4 years.
But it is 4 years away. But again, if he walks into Downing Street and he pulls exactly the same chocolate levers that the last 4 Prime Ministers have found and is unable to do something, isn't that when democracy in this country becomes under a massive stress? I mean, look at what happened at the weekend. We haven't seen ordinary people taken to the streets like that in quite a long time.
No.
Tommy Robinson is obviously a controversial figure, but he is tapping into a disquiet there.
He's tapping into a rage and a dispossession that we have to address, and Farage is leading an insurgency that our government, this Labour government, has to actually champion that insurgency. Things have got to change. I mean, that's the problem. The last 50 years will be looked back on as an era of greed, an era of waste.
Why do you think so many Brits went on that march, and B, the government's response to it, I think, has been a little bit off? Are they silly to basically say people feel less safe because of marches like this? The implication that everyone on that march is racist?
No, I mean, my view of the march is I love the crowd, I hate the stage. Those people who are on the stage are my political enemies completely. I mean, they're mucking around with all manner of race theory and this and that and the other. The people of England are tolerant people, are resolute people. And what the people on that march are saying is they feel abandonment and dispossession. And we've got to get with it. We've got to actually restore the honour of
Starmer said to his cabinet today that he's in the fight of our times, patriotic national renewal versus toxic division. But it feels to me like most of those people in their march would feel that Starmer is not on their side.
They don't, and that's the reality of where we are, and we've got to spend the next 4 years through our actions, not our words. One of the problems we've got is that there's a huge division. He talks about patriotic renewal, totally into that.
But he's the person to deliver that.
You'll get it, like, this is a huge structural change that's got to happen.
But can he do it? Is he up to the job?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen over the last year is an enormous learning for him. To talk about patriotism...
Learning on the job doesn't sound great, though, does it?
But that's the way life is, even for you.
Oh, well, I'm certainly learning on this job. Lord Glassman, thank you for joining.
It's a pleasure, and good luck with saving the West.
Producer Vic is laughing in the gallery about my learning curve. Thank you, Lord Glassman. After the break, we will speak to Winston Marshall, host of the Winston Marshall Show, about freedom of speech and the awful assassination of Charlie Kirk. Don't go away. Last week, America, well, in fact, the world was rocked by the awful assassination of Charlie Kirk. It wasn't just a shocking act of violence, but it lit a fuse under an already volatile country. Overnight, questions have erupted over when does free speech turn into hate speech? And who draws that line? As I watch the fallout, one truth has become impossible to ignore. The rage between left and right has curdled into blind hatred. And right now, that fury is burning hottest on the left. Here with me to discuss all that is Winston Marshall, host of the brilliant Winston Marshall Show, and a man who knows a little bit about cancel culture after leaving the band Mumford & Sons in 2022 to be able to speak his mind, which is something I hope you're going to be able to do tonight. Welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West. Before we get into it, look, I know you knew Charlie Kirk, you appeared on his show. Just give your reflection on the man the world has lost.
Well, I will do. I'll start by saying why I think this is such a significant moment. It's not just the horrific video we saw that was all over social media and plastered all over social media across the world. I mean, there have been people in South Korea, Japan, in London.
Yeah,
we had vigils.
Hundreds of people.
This is a young guy, 31, who clearly affected people in a way that we've not really seen from a politically, I guess, mainly political social media influencer. And he's obviously a significant member of the MAGA movement. He was head of the MAGA youth movement and led that. But why it's significant is also the reaction. And I was in the States last week and I spoke to people some of whom are not really politically switched on or don't necessarily follow everything. But they saw this and they saw how their friends and neighbours reacted. And Charlie's opinions are mainstream conservative, an absolutely mainstream conservative boomer opinion in America. It's different. We have a different mainstream over here for the conservative thought. But over there, it's absolutely mainstream, not just for the boomers, but obviously the kids. So people saw how their friends and neighbours were reacting to someone being killed for expressing the exact values and thoughts and opinions and politics they themselves had. And so that was a real wake-up call of what we're dealing with. I think a similar thing happened October 7th here in London. Before even Israel had responded, we saw people celebrating in the streets. And then there was a moment, it's like, oh, these are the people we're living with. These are the people we're living beside. They have horrible opinions. And by the way, sorry, this is another really important part of free speech. It's absolutely crucial we have free speech so we can see how people think, so we can see what people are thinking.
Exactly that. I think it's the most people aren't hyper engaged online. Lots of people I know who are parents didn't know who Charlie Kirk was and were texting me and asking me, who is this guy? Because my kids are asking about it.
So look, let me tell you about Charlie, because
please.
I never met him in person, but I did his show a couple of times. And I completely forgot that we'd actually messaged quite a lot. And in the messages, I just reread them, hyper curious, disagreed with me, and even on the show we disagreed on stuff, but he disagreed in a really agreeable, humble way. The sort of pugilistic college campus debate.
His signature style.
That's a type of thing he was doing, but that's not the whole picture of this guy. And actually, he is immensely intelligent and had a deep curiosity, a deep humility, and was a very, very nice bloke. I mean, that's another reason that this whole thing's horrifying. On the way here to come speak with you, we saw they've released the text message, private messages of the now charged suspect.
Yes.
And he said that he wanted to. In his opinion, Charlie Kirk was espousing a certain type of hate that could not be dealt with in any other way. This is the only way to deal with it.
Was he too good? He was too articulate. Do you think that's genuine? Well, did you believe that's why that's...
crucial about that sentence is the word hate.
Yeah.
Is that we've got to a point now where people are just terrified of hate. And it's in this country we have non-crime hate incidences and all these other hate laws. There's that conversation now being had in America, and we should talk about that. But this is really crucial in understanding how, and this is really a problem of the political left in America. And I'm really sorry, people don't quite appreciate this. Charlie himself published a study in April showing that more than 50% of Americans who are left of centre think that assassinating Trump would be somewhat justified. So the majority of the political left in America think political violence is okay.
Yes.
And of course, they tried to kill Trump.
Twice.
And people forget that a fireman was killed by the bullet that grazed Trump's ear.
I think the really interesting thing as well is on that exact point, you've jumped ahead in my script here, but no, on that exact point, when people say the left have a problem with political violence, it isn't that they're all going to take up arms. It isn't they're all going to take up guns and do horrific things like this person seems to have done to Charlie Kirk. It's exactly that. It's the celebration. It's the acceptance that it's okay.
But why doesn't show the same on the right?
And
it is the case you'll find political violence on the right and left, OK?
Yeah.
But the difference is that it's supported. And The Hill have just published another study showing that in America, if you're more liberal, you're more likely to support political violence. It's not just one poll that shows this.
And it's not even polls, is it? It's the fact is, after George Floyd, America, was on fire. There were riots. There were shops, restaurants,
25
bars
people were killed.
Up. Yes, exactly.
25 people. Do people even realise that?
Yeah.
I don't think they do. $2 billion worth of damage was done to businesses, as far as I can tell, many black, maybe majority black businesses, all in the name of Black Lives Matter.
That's the problem. I mean,
this whole thing has also exposed a total hypocrisy in mainstream media, in this country as well. When, let's say, Jan 6th happened, you didn't hear people going, what about the BLM riots? No, they dealt with that issue. Now this has happened. You hear everyone going, well, there's political violence on the right as well. Yeah. No, the left wing Political violence is a serious issue. And it comes down to the rhetoric. Now, they love talking about rhetoric and how divisive certain rhetoric is. But actually, and James Lindsay has done a phenomenal study on this, for decades, for 60 years, back to Foucault, the left have been laying the groundwork to equate words with violence. This goes all the way back to Foucault and that horrific gender woman, was it Judith Butler? Is that her name?
I think it is.
In 1990, she wrote a book about how misgendering is tantamount to violence. So what you have is, for decades, they've been priming young kids and ideologues to think that violence is equal to words, which means that when they see someone like Charlie Kirk and they think it's hateful, they think violence is an appropriate response.
And because he says, I don't care about your feelings. I care about facts. Facts become for your feelings. I don't care about that, and that they cannot understand that. Just on hypocrisy, I don't know if you've seen I'm sure you've seen what Pam Bondi said today, but let's show our viewers what the US Attorney General said today.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people, so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Mr. Marshall, I don't think that's the legacy that Charlie Kirk should be remembered for, do you? He has literally said, when he was alive, that he did not believe in punishing hurty words with criminal action. What is Pam Bondi doing? And are we at risk of whipping up something here that is completely an anathema to what Charlie Kirk taught us?
She's either entirely foolish or entirely naive, and most likely both.
Right, and neither are good.
Right, I don't think... there's no evidence to me that anyone on the political right in America agrees with her statements there. This is the same person who made a total fiasco of the Epstein files.
As we learned last night on our episode, but please carry on.
It's quite likely she's a moron who hasn't really thought these things through. If the Americans take up this idea of hate speech, they will turn into the disaster
the slippery slope of the United Kingdom, where Graham Linehan gets pulled off a plane for a tweet. Yes. A bad joke.
Exactly.
A quite funny joke, but a joke.
Well, exactly. And this is something that in our country is a problem that goes back decades. It goes back to the Race Relations Act from the late 60s. And since then, a bunch of laws have accreted, all in the name of tackling hate. And we've now got this sort of joke situation where people are getting lengthy prison sentences for tweets.
Exactly, but then there is a sort of shades of grey here, isn't it? In the fact that people are losing their jobs because of what they've tweeted or put on Facebook about Charlie. That is short of being criminally prosecuted by the likes of Pam Bondi. But do you think people should bosses have the right to fire someone if they don't like what they said about Charlie Kirk? Yeah.
Okay. So I think this probably depends on the situation.
Yeah.
So I haven't got the names. I had to look at who's been fired for comments on Charlie Kirk. The most prominent is this MSNBC fella.
Yes.
Who, I can't remember his name. I think it's...
we know.
O'Dowd.
Yeah, a former Republican strategist who was a contributor to MSNBC, yes.
He was commenting live before we knew that Kirk had died. And he said something like, it might have been one of his supporters.
Yes.
Something like that. And then basically made some sort of statement, I'm sure we can dig it up, where he said, well, if you say hateful things, that these sort of things are consequences. It was absolutely repugnant, his commentary. Now, he apologised, and I haven't fully looked into the apology, but it seems to me that maybe this is a case
there is grey area, yeah. But then what about doctors, nurses, teachers, pilots?
I think
public sector people, essentially, who people have to be able to, conservatives or liberals, be able to put their faith into that they're going to save their life or raise their children.
So when it comes to doctors and nurses, you cannot have a doctor or nurse who has expressed that it's okay to have someone die or killed because of their political opinion, because that person is in a place where they might have to care someone who has a different politics to them. So they can't be trusted in that job of caring for that person. Now, so that's why I say
that's where I think
the same might play here. We look at this Oxford Union kid.
Yes.
Now, this is a guy who he's the president-elect, And in some revealed WhatsApp messages, he said,
he's
LOL.
He's appeared to delight in the death of Charlie
Exactly,
Kirk.
which he sort of retracted, but then he did an interview with the New Statesman and basically doubling down. He is essentially, his job as president, or would-be president, is the symbol of the institution of the Oxford Union, which is the biggest debating institution in the world. And
the most famous, yeah.
And I when I did it last year, over dinner before we do it, we raise our glasses to free speech.
Yes.
So this guy has now openly attacked free speech because he thinks it's some speech you should be killed for. How can he be the symbol for an institution that is free speech? Now, but let's just a counterexample, because some people might say, well, I'm like buying into council culture. You brought up my situation from 2021. I supported a book, coincidentally enough, that was documenting far-left extremism and far-left violence, like the 25 people killed in the BLM riots. But that had nothing to do with my job. Like, it was utterly apolitical.
Yes.
As far as I knew, my band was apolitical. At least that's what I thought.
At the time.
It might be the case that some of them had gone on stage and said Trump's the C word or whatever, and they expressed their politics, but it wasn't itself, the music wasn't political. It had nothing to do with it. So that seems completely unrelated. Likewise, J.K. Rowling, I know that she's had problems with certain institutions not wanting to work with her.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous because all she's holding is a perfectly legitimate opinion that women cannot be men, men can't be women, and women's spaces should be protected. That's a old school feminist position, and now she's having all this pushback. So it seems ridiculous that she would have that.
This show, because the credo of this show is saving the West of what what America can learn from Britain and what mistakes Britain have made and what mistakes America's making. This is, I think, a perfect example of where America risks going down a very slippery slope that Britain has found herself in, as we've discussed. Do you think, with the likes of Pam Bondi in authority, are these values of free speech, or these values of nuance, salvageable, or are we on a dangerous road?
I think the Americans understand free speech much better than we do. Actually, Trump didn't give a very good response to what Pam Bondi said, and it was pretty woolly, although I don't think he didn't really fully back her up, but he didn't make a position of...
He sort of made a joke. He said, maybe we'll come after you.
Exactly.
Again, a classic Trump joke that's, we'll send liberals around the bend for 48 hours, but actually was clearly a joke.
But if you actually look at what Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance have done, they've been better about Britain and Europe's free speech situation than the people running our country.
I totally agree.
Trump even sent, not many people know this, Telegraph reported on this, Trump sent a team to investigate the people who've been arrested for silent prayer. And there's been several incidences of that. You remember, of course, the superb Munich speech, which J.D. Vance gave, again addressing people who are being arrested for silent prayer in this country and charged and convicted. So these Americans understand the British or free speech in a way that we don't actually have.
Do you expect Donald Trump? He's here in the United Kingdom for a couple of days. He's going to have a microphone at some point, I think, on Thursday. There's the Graham Linehan case, the J.K. Rowling case, the abortion clinic prayer case, Lucy Connolly. These are all on the president's radar. He has been asked. He knows about them. Do you expect the president to pipe up, so to speak? And should he?
It's hard to know exactly what this is, because there's a lot of... He's getting all the pomp and pageantry, right?
The grip and grin, the king and the queen.
And it's... I'm sure there'll be some political interviews and people he'll get prodded. I imagine he knows how to troll the country.
But would you like to see the president make some of these points that you've been making?
I absolutely love it, because as far as I can see, he loves Britain more than our leaders love Britain. Now, that might seem like a controversial statement, but by their fruits you shall know them. Here's a man who clearly loved the Queen, spoke very highly of her. He came on holiday here 2 months ago, up to Scotland to play his golf. He famously put the Churchill bust back into the White House Oval Office. Compare that to Keir Starmer, who's paying to get rid of the Chagos Islands, so he clearly is not interested in the British Empire. He removed... What did he remove from Downing Street? I think
Shakespeare, Elizabeth I. He doesn't like. He says he doesn't like eyeballs.
Walter Raleigh. This is a guy
convenient.
that seems to be rejecting British history and British culture. he is clueless when it comes to free speech. He says he loves our tradition of free speech. Well, I'd love to hear him define exactly what that is. He doesn't seem to have a clue.
Well, he says free speech in this country exists, and it will for a very long time, and that's all he's ever says. But it's clearly not the case.
Yeah, nonsense.
Winston Marshall, thank you very much for joining us on Saves the West. A tour de force coming in soon,
Harry.
yes? No, thank you. After the break, we'll go back stateside. We're live in London right now, and we'll unpack MAGA's so-called hate speech crackdown, as we were discussing, with the top White House correspondent and another guest. Don't go away. Welcome back to Harry Cole's Saves the West. We're live in London tonight, but joining me from the United States is our great panel of Reagan Reese, White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, and Patrice Luwonga, Economic Policy Director at the Independent Women's Forum. Good evening, everyone. Look, I want to start with what we've been talking about tonight, Pam Bondi. Reagan, I'm going to start with you. Last night we had Jim Comer telling us that Pam Bondi had serious questions to answer over her handling of the Epstein files, and today it appears she has really riled up the MAGA base with her suggestion that hurty words need policing. Hardly the legacy of Charlie Kirk would come to expect, right?
Oh, yeah. She still has questions to answer. You know, this morning I was on a radio station actually in Washington, D.C., and I said I was puzzled by Pam Bondi's comments because J.D. Vance gave this great monologue yesterday hosting the Charlie Kirk show, which was really the strongest, clearest message we've seen from the White House on how they were going to respond to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And then Pam Bondi turns right around and does this. And I actually, as soon as I got off the air, I had a text from a DOJ staffer sending me Pam Bondi's statements, kind of doubling down on what they've said. And throughout the day, that's more or less what we've seen from the administration. We saw Pam Bondi give a statement to Axios and say that she's more going after those who incite violence. But overall, the response from the administration to Pam Bondi's comments have been doubling down and supporting her, which I don't think is what the base wants to see.
This is at times a freewheeling administration. No one can say it was anything otherwise. You've seen the president up close. You fire questions at him most days, as far as I can see. Do you really think that he's on board with this?
Well, I was thinking about this when you were asking your previous guest about his response today. I don't think President Trump likes people or reporters or the media going after his cabinet officials. He doesn't want to hand them a scalp. And so he's going to stay with them and stand next to them. I think he's very sick of the Epstein files and the mess that was created by his administration. And so I'm sure that a part of him is annoyed that he is, having to fight off the media and these questions. But largely, we've seen the president stand by his cabinet when they have committed errors. And so I have to imagine that he thinks this will probably blow over. But that's just a guess through my time spent with the president.
Patrice, the right, Conservatives have spent years campaigning for the right for small business owners, for example, to be able to say, no, I don't want to bake a wedding cake for a gay wedding or whatever it is that they dispute. Yet now we're hearing Pam Bondi say to business owners that they have to print posters for Charlie Kirk supporters, whether they agree with them or not. What is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tough one for some conservatives, which is what is the difference between, actually challenging individuals who are, maybe expressing their ridiculous, inappropriate comments over Charlie Kirk and even withholding their business versus those who are choosing to do something like that based on a religious belief. In the instance of cake bakers, for example. So this is not going to come to an end. I think there is a difference between this and cancel culture. I don't necessarily see these examples of doctors being removed for cheering that Charlie Kirk was dead and the nurse who called him out being reinstated. I think that's actually a good thing, and as you were discussing in the previous panel. But does it mean that if you get fired as a FedEx worker for not making that poster? Well, FedEx has every right to do that as a private individual business to say that staffer does not reflect their their brand and what they believe in, which is the right to free speech and against people who will take that right away from others.
But is it not a slippery slope? You start with gay cakes and you end up with people in cuffs. In Britain, we've had comedians, and a comedian who made a joke in America arrested on landing in London for something that was hosted on an American server, written in the state of Arizona, and was a joke. Do you not fear this is a slippery slope and the start of a descent into cancel culture?
Well, I think the impetus is different here. There is a very radical, violent streak, particularly in the left, that is creating, honestly, an assassination culture. This mainstreaming the idea of violence against anyone who is coming from a conservative perspective, a MAGA perspective. And it's so interesting when we look at YouGov polling that was taken last Wednesday on the day that Charlie Kirk was murdered. You look at the difference in the support. At close to about 40% of self-identified liberals and strong liberals think it's okay for political violence against someone that you disagree with, compared to conservatives where it was, 6%. So I think that there is a difference between what we're seeing here in America versus what we've seen in England.
Reagan, do you agree with that or disagree? I mean, we're seeing people dancing on the streets, I believe in New York, of the CEO murderer Luigi Mangione, who's no longer being tried as a terrorist. And, people are literally dancing in the streets. What is going on?
Well, it makes you sick to your stomach, I think, for the fate of America. I think exactly what Patrice is describing is exactly the mindset within the administration and the White House, how they are going to respond and how they're going to attack this. I think within the mainstream media, I spent a lot of time at the White House amongst these legacy media reporters who are the vibe that I'm getting is that they want to move on and that they've kind of seen enough of this and they're eye rolling at the response to Charlie Kirk's assassination attempt, which assassination as a reporter, that is just gut-wrenching to experience. But the administration is holding strong, and they're not going to be swayed by the way that the media is trying to get them to move on or call this cancel culture and frame this as a mistake by the administration. And so that should be heartening to the president's base and to Americans who feel scared right now.
This risks a major rift between the administration and the base, though. I mean, the Charlie Kirk legacy is growing, louder by the day, and it does seem that Bondi is out of tune with that. As we've discussed already, she's bungled a fair few things, and yes, the president may want to throw a protective arm around her. But do you think her political, an answer from each of you, if I may, is her political fate safe, or could we see her quietly binned off at some point?
Well, to look for, to answer this question, you kind of can look to who is being instated at the FBI. We see Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who's now coming in to be co-FBI director. And I wouldn't necessarily take that as a move that there's people who are unhappy with the FBI leadership. I think you can also interpret that as people being maybe unhappy with the DOJ leadership or putting him in a position to do something better. But I do think that President Trump has been protective of his cabinet this time around. I don't think there has been a reason, or I don't think there's been an urge of him to fire anyone. And so for now, I think Pam Bondi's safe. Patrice,
one, will she survive? And two, should she survive?
I think she will survive, but I don't think she'll survive all 4 years. Survive in the role, I should say, just to clarify. I do think that there comes a point where, and we saw this with the back chat signal gate, where you had a member of the cabinet who had to be removed, or a senior leadership team moved into a different position, right? Because at some point the heat becomes bigger than what the administration is trying to accomplish, and so when you have so many different scandals, and right now people's minds are not on what happened with the Jeffrey Epstein files, but that can come right back for, given a month or two, once we start to see the prosecution of Charlie Kirk's assassin. And so, if there's some sort of third issue that comes up where people perceive that, she's just not doing her job, then I could absolutely foresee President Trump remove her. But I will say that, to Reagan's point, we have not seen turmoil or turnover in the administration. And I think that's a credit to the people that President Trump selected, who this time around are very much committed to his agenda, are not trying to steal the stage and the star power, and are extremely effective communicators. And I think actually we're seeing that she's weaker on that last point.
Yep, Act 2 of Donald Trump, yes, well, plenty to write about, but maybe not quite as much as first time around. Guys, we'll be back in the States next week. Hope to see you again back on here. Thank you very much, Reagan, Patrice. Don't go anywhere. Oh, sorry, because Jack Elsom is here. There we go, sorry. That wasn't... I thought we were going to an advert break.
I thought you'd forgotten me.
I know, Jack, how could I forget you? Some people say you have the greatest job in the world. You are the Sun's political editor.
It didn't do any harm to the last guy.
Yeah,
what's he doing now?
What happened to that guy? Jack Elsom, very quickly, you've been squirreling away, beavering away, working on tomorrow's Sun newspaper, all about the state visit. This is a moment of high drama for Keir Starmer. He had a terrible couple of weeks. You would have thought that Donald Trump arriving would be the sort of thing they'd be stressed about. What could go wrong? He's ruined, previous trips to the UK by intervening. But actually, it feels to me like this is going to be a moment of relief. Keir Starmer can wait to get up there next to the Don.
I think we're at the point now where Keir Starmer will be very pleased with the state visit if it goes off without a hitch. And you are right. What he has done, I think the only real thing you can point to in this term so far is building a very strong relationship with the president with whom he is not a natural bedfellow. Keir Starmer on the left of politics, Donald Trump very much to the right. However, he's clearly got a lot of pitfalls in this. He's talked about net zero before, clearly a big difference between the two of them. About tech taxes, clearly a big difference. And the main thing at the moment, which I think could be a potential bear trap, is this issue of free speech, in the aftermath of that Charlie Kirk shooting.
Reverberating around the world.
Big questions, that's going to be brought up, whether there's going to be fractions between the two leaders.
Look, there's no doubt, as you so succinctly put, there are big tensions between Donald Trump and Britain and the UK and issues here. Are we going to see Donald Trump on good behaviour? Or will we see him like he did in 2018, where he sort of, undermined Theresa May while standing next to her, endorsed Boris Johnson, did all of these crazy things, in terms of diplomatic protocols gone out the window. It seems to me he's desperate to get that grip and grin with the King tomorrow. After that,
he's very much said that his focus here is about the royal family. He says, my good friends, Charles and Camilla, that is my main focus of the trip.
So and William and Kate, he loves them all.
Exactly. So I think tomorrow, where we have the whole pomp and pageantry at Windsor Castle, that is absolute cat to the cream when it comes to Donald Trump. He loves that sort of stuff.
We're hearing tonight it's going to be the biggest ever display of...
it's the biggest guard of honour in state visit history. And there's going to be a fly past with F-35 jets with both the US and UK. The red arrows are going to be rolled out. Every lever is going to be pulled. But it's going to be the nitty-gritty of politics on the Thursday when we have that press conference with the two leaders. That is traditionally where the freewheeling president can go off on one. If it's on net zero, we know he hates Keir Starmer's windmills. If it's on this tech tax, which Keir Starmer is threatening to put on his Silicon Valley chums. If Jeffrey Epstein comes up, obviously been a big thing, as you know, with the Peter Mandelson scandal here this week. And then obviously free speech. What's going to happen if someone brings up the case of Charlie Kirk and then also the case about the policing of tweets in Britain?
When President Obama flew to London in the height of the referendum campaign for Brexit back in 2016, and he said, Britain will be back at the queue for a trade deal if Brexit happens. Ironically, we were actually at the front of the queue for the first trade deal on Trump, but that's a different story. Brits took to that very badly. They don't like being lectured what to do. We are very much a country that, I'm not going to swear, but because I don't know what the rules are on that after 10 o'clock. But, is it going to go down badly if Donald Trump starts lecturing us on free speech?
I think that free speech is something which the West shares as a principle in and of itself. And so, Donald Trump is clearly the leader of the free world. And at the time where a lot of people do not feel in this country that they are being necessarily protected when it comes to free speech, they look at someone across the pond that, they see as their champion. I think that is going to go down well with a large part of the UK, but, we have to be real as well. There's a large part of Britain that doesn't like Donald Trump.
One word answer, Jack. Is this... what is your adjective for how this state trip's going to go? I know you have an adjective in copy. Disaster, booming, brilliant.
I think it's going to be a delicate diplomatic tightrope for both of them.
That's too many words. That was Harry Cole Saves the West. That was too many words from Jack. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. Good night.